Hey, if you're new to 3D printing, here's a video to get you started. I'm about to share you 5 different beginner-friendly 3D prints that you can get off online for free, and from that, help you understand your machine a lot better, as well as what you can do later down in the future if you decide to go and make your own designs from CAD files, 3D modeling, and whatnot. I'll be also sharing a few tips on how you can get started on creating your own CAD files and how you can start 3D modeling. Hopefully this will give you a leg up or a direction on where to go and create your own things. My name is Jackie. I started 3D printing late last year and I've been documenting my journey ever since on this channel. So if you want to watch that from start to now, go ahead and do that through my YouTube. I've been very open about how I'm also learning and continuously learning on how to do this 3D printing journey, and I've just been sharing my mistakes and also the things that I've picked up along the way. So hopefully this helps you if you're just starting out. All right, so the first print that I suggest, and honestly everyone will suggest you do, whether you've bought a 3D printer new or used, is printing what we call a Benchy. A Benchy is essentially a benchmark print that every printer or 3D printer will do at first in order for you to see if it's functioning normally. With this print, you can check the edges, how the layers are shaping up, the little gaps that it's showing, so then you can see if it looks normal. Later down the line, a Benchy is also used if you want to test new filaments to see if they're printing right. This is something that I've recently learned, that different filaments print really differently from different brands. One PLA might end up looking very different and printing very different than another brand's PLA. In a case that you're using multiple brands, it might be beneficial to print Benchies for different brands just to make sure you can get the control and the print dialed down well, so you don't have any sort of mistakes or any sort of errors while printing. The second thing I'd print, just to understand your printer a little bit better, and this is something that I wish I did at the get-go, is called a tolerance test. Tolerance in 3D printing is essentially the margin of error in terms of your print dimension. There's a misconception in 3D printing, especially for beginners, that 3D printing is exact in terms of the dimensions you're printing out. Now, what I mean by this is when you print something that's 10 by 10, beginners will often assume that you're printing exactly 10 by 10. But what they don't realize is when you're printing, there's a margin of error in each print based on the physical properties of your filament, of your nozzle, of just physics. So to find out the usual margin of error that occurs in your setup, it's important to do a test. Now, this is something that I wish I knew early on, because I fiddled a lot with different margins of errors, just printing new models over and over again. But it would have been much simpler to just dial that in from the get-go and know what that was. Online on Maker's World or Bamboo Handy, you'll be able to search up tolerance tests, and multiple will come up with numbers to show you what the tolerances are per print. Once you know it, you'll be able to mark it down to know exactly what your setup is able to offer, and therefore plan around it later down the line, whether you're doing your own prints or printing someone else's things. The third thing that I would suggest you printing as a beginner is a container for all your tools and all the freebies that come with your 3D printer when you've bought it. This is especially important if you bought new. To give you an example, when I bought my 3D printer, they gave me swatches, little tools to help, but they all came in disposable packs. And while that's fine, it's also really easy to be misplaced. In order to make everything look a little better and also just keep things a little more organized down the line, you can print containers or different organizational tools to help you organize a little better and just make sure things are in one place. The fourth thing that I would suggest printing is my bent over laughing man shower door stop. This is a little shout out to my own thing. I covered this over a different video, but essentially I had a problem with my shower door not being able to close on itself, so I had to design something to slip it in place. But ever since I've created that design, I've used it for a lot of different things. A bookmark, I've used to keep receipts, hold little notes. I just found it to be a really diverse print actually, and it's something fun that explores a little bit on how you can create simple prints and maybe inspire you to create your own thing. So if you're leaning towards creating your own designs, I think this is a super fun print to see how I did it, and hopefully it inspires you to do it yourself. And the last thing I'd suggest you as a beginner 3D print is something fun for yourself, like a figure. It's something that you probably wanted to do anyways, but a lot of the times I think people get sucked into a black hole that they forget, wait, I actually wanted to print some fun things for myself. So just make sure you do that. Make sure you take the time to just pick something you find on Maker's World that relates to you, whether it's an anime figure, cars, or whatnot, print something fun, and then have it for yourself. So those were 5 prints to get you started as a 3D printer. If you want to start creating your own designs, these are some tips that will help you along that road. The first thing I would say is look at what you're trying to make. If you're trying to make something like a vase or keychains or simple things, I would look on Maker's World or on the Bamboo Studio, because there's actually a few tools for that for you to get you started on that already, that you don't have to really bring into a CAD software or make your own thing. For example, I know on Bamboo Studio and Maker's World you can make vases, you can make keychains, and you can make like little sculptures of yourself that are really fun, and it's really easy to use. You kind of just upload a picture, or there's like really simple UI parameters that you can design around instead of really learning a CAD software. So if it's something like that, something that is very popular, I would suggest you start there, so you just don't have to bother with the rest of the things. If you're trying to learn more about 3D printing and 3D modeling in order to create more diversity in your prints, the next step would be to move into a CAD software. Now, I made the mistake when I began and started on a 3D modeling software called Blender. And although Blender is super powerful, it can definitely do what you would probably want to do anyways, it really isn't designed for 3D printing. Getting measurements from Blender is super difficult in terms of making things exact. What I'd suggest you do is start on a simple 3D CAD software. I started with Onshape, and Onshape is great because it's free, it's online, you don't have to download anything, you just make an account, and then you can just start modeling. And it's very simple in terms of how you can make things. I definitely watch YouTube videos. I'm not going to get into it here because honestly, I'm not that good at it myself. I'm still learning, and I don't feel like I'm in the position to teach anyone about my 3D modeling techniques or whatnot, because I also just watch on YouTube. I just search up how to model on whatever your CAD software is. The reason why I've shifted from Onshape to Fusion for the things that I wanted to make, Fusion just worked better than Onshape. If you don't need anything that's complicated, just start with Onshape. And even if you want to move from Onshape to Fusion later on, it'll be more about the project that you do that Onshape doesn't allow you to do anymore, so you need to move to a different software. And the last tip that I hope you remember for the rest of your 3D printing journey is make sure you're having fun. A lot of people have reached out to me on Instagram and on YouTube asking me how they can make money through 3D printing. And every time I suggest and tell people that if you're getting into this hobby with the sole purpose of making money, you're in the wrong hobby. There are easier ways to make money than this. I think this is reserved for people who are more fascinated about product, more fascinated about 3D printing than the actual monetization of it. So if that's you, you'll have a lot of fun with the process of figuring things out and making things in general. That process of doing that is fun. If you're in this hobby just to make money, it's not going to be fun because it's going to be a long grind from start to finish, making something that might not even work later on. But I would advise everyone in this hobby to make sure you're having fun as you're doing it, because if you're not, there's no point doing it in the first place. And let's be honest, right? 3D printing is a super wasteful hobby. As someone who thinks they're somewhat environmentally conscious, I understand that with 3D printing, you're literally printing plastic, and a lot of the times while prototyping, things go to waste, right? Not to say that the level of waste is the same as large manufacturing industries in, say, China or whatnot. It's definitely not the same scale. But if you think about it, if everyone had a 3D printer and they're all prototyping their own things and they're all making their own products, there's going to be a lot of waste contributing to that. And if you're in the hobby, you're a part of the problem. Just make sure you're having fun at the end of the day. If you like this video, please leave it a thumbs up. If you have something to say in terms of suggestions or just want to let me know what you think, put it down in the comments below. Make sure you subscribe and hit the bell icon because it really helps this channel. I'm trying to grow this channel hopefully to 10K by the end of the year. So let's see if we can do that. I thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you. Bye.